But I was very fortunate to get a internship with Alliance Science and Technology, which now has become HII. That internship turned into a full-time position. I graduated with COVID kind of still going on, so a lot of stuff was, hard to find, especially in person, but I was really lucky that I did want to kind of find jobs that were work from home. I was applying for those Penguin Random House positions, anything I could find. I really wanted to get into book editing, but it was actually my fiance who wanted me to try and apply for a technical writing position with a military software company. I got a call back and got the position. The job market, especially for technical writers, unfortunately, is really saturated. So they really do look for people with experience, even though it's like for entry-level positions. So I would say anything that you can do to be competitive with like experience, either directly with like technical writing if you're looking to that, or like what I did with book reviewing, just like online, something I could do in my spare time, like that. Anything you can do definitely will make it easier, I think, to get hired. I actually entered ODU as a civil engineering student. Over time, I kind of realized that like the detail aspect of it is really what got me interested. But that actually got me thinking about like English as like potentially something I could do just to satisfy like my attention to detail and something creative because I really needed that, like something that would really like test my creativity rather than just fulfilling like build this, do that, do that. For me, like I did a lot of research into what I could potentially do. Editing seemed like one of those jobs that like was suited to my, skill set of just looking at the nitty gritty, like with grammar and all that. I remember taking like a library science class that was for a database in general. Even researching stuff for a book and stuff like that can like lead into all sorts of things of like, oh, there's deeper storytelling in the symbolism within this, and just like understanding where to look of like, oh, this is interesting. What does it mean? The main thing is research skills. There was actually a topic that I had to look into for the previous user guide that I was doing. Again, it's mainly for like people with a military background, which I do not have. So a lot of this was just new information to me. But I took my time. I was reading documents that were well over 1,000 pages, just skimming through for the information I needed. And I eventually became a subject matter expert myself, pretty much for at least that one topic. I also took a digital writing course, which really helps me with HTML and CSS. So that, yeah, that really helped to give me a fundamental basis for like, taking the course once just to pass it. But then on my own, I eventually came back and was like, oh, let me relearn this. And it was much easier the second time, just kind of understanding, this is how the computer inputs the information. So here's how I can manipulate it, sort of thing. I guess like just to enjoy some of the stuff more, like I definitely enjoyed reading stuff and analyzing all the stories that we read and different classes, just like learning the material. But like sometimes I felt like I was just learning it to like pass a test or something. But like I wish I had taken more time to just sit with something and like maybe reread things or just really like engage with things that like I sometimes didn't have time for, but like just giving myself the opportunity to like, hey, like this is really interesting. Maybe just like one or two things for this one class, like really engage with and see um, if it leads you somewhere. So that and also engaging with more extracurricular opportunities, which unfortunately weren't always available because of COVID going on, but there were still some things I could have engaged in. Basically, technical writing is just informative writing, so stuff that's more like with user guides that tell you step by step, here's how you do something, or it's like those some of those like business documents that are long and need to be there, but like reference guides or stuff like that that just needs to be in place in case someone has questions. It's like all the information is right there. So it's really just like, I guess in a way you could think of it of making like a database of information in different documents. I've mostly been doing user guides, so it's like usually like software based, mainly just like they give me a software, I have like a little bit of time to learn it, or just I'm always like kind of playing around with it to see how it works. But my main focus is like, okay, I have to define where every button is and then tell people like there are certain steps to like accomplish this one task that's like really, you know, like a common task that they would do. I'd be like, okay, here's the step by step. So that's more what I specialize in. I've also done stuff with like technical bulletins where it like kind of gives an overview if softwares have changed or anything that's like needs to be told to the government of like, hey, this has changed. You know, I had a really good supervisor who was really my mentor. She really taught me everything that it takes to be a technical writer, the research skills, the interviewing skills, and then just trusting like a process of like gathering information and then putting it on a page, reviewing it, and then sending it out. It can be really fulfilling to like think that my work is at least helping someone be less frustrated using something. That's really the goal. But with my job, I've actually been able to take a more creative approach with like designing my documents, especially with like certain software I have. It allows me to do more front-end web development sort of thing. So I've taught myself a lot of coding with HTML5 and CSS especially, but then I'm also like looking into JavaScript so I can actually like understand what's going on behind like the interface that you're looking at. And then also I can just better control like the layout of things of like, oh, why is this like off center? Let me change it. And then I can like actually make it to how I want. So that kind of satisfies some of that creativity. It's always worth to like put out your resume and like try to reach out. Definitely applying directly to company websites helps your chances of like just putting everything out there and like, you know, leading a solid interview to hopefully get the job. And I definitely highlighted the classes that I mentioned with CS 150 and digital writing as like my in for like having like more of like a technical, like I can do technical information and like thinking like that. I also highlighted different aspects of leadership that I put down there. So Sigma Tau Delta definitely helps. Oh, I was also a book reviewer at the time. So like I did onlinebookreview.com. They have just like books that they send out. You can read them for free sometimes. Sometimes you have to pay for them, but I mostly just did like the free books. I would read them and then write 400 to 500 word review that would just go up online. And they had some like not too rigorous of an editing process, but like it helps me to get involved with that too. But it really that experience helped to highlight my ability to like proofread and just take in like information from like larger books that were either fiction to stuff that was more technical. I remember reading a book on UX design that actually ended up helping with my job. But that was definitely one on my resume that helped me to land the job. But I think my success with it was a little more personal of like my supervisor was just very like um, very encouraging. She was a really good mentor and she saw that I, you know, had a creative side to me that was going to be useful for something that can otherwise be really monotonous. So yeah, the interview is really where I showed her that like I could communicate well and really that I could troubleshoot through a problem, which is also majority of my job. So I started my internship July of 2021, and then by December I was full time.